Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Superpowers 30th Anniversary Collection Batman from Mattel. That's right, Mattel's DC Universe Classics line is going out in a bang, giving us a cool homage to the original Kenner Superpowers collection. As you can see, Batman comes on that awesome recreation of the vintage Superpowers card back. It's of course sized up to fit the new 6-inch action figures from the DCUC line, but still features that bright blue, red, and yellow color scheme of the vintage cards, and even has the Superpowers logo right there above the figure. It even features vintage artwork of Batman that's very similar to what was seen on the vintage Superpowers card back, and the only real big difference, of course, is that instead of the Kenner logo, we now have that Mattel logo. Just like with all the figures in this Superpowers homage, the back shows off several of the DC Universe Classics figures that are nods to the vintage Superpowers line, and we even get a cool explanation of this final wave of DC Universe Classics figures. Alright, just like with Superman before him, this Batman figure here is basically exactly the same as several Batman figures we've already seen in the DCUC lineup. The big difference here is his paint job, which is meant to look much more like that vintage action figure. So first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation, which is exactly what you've come to expect from this line. That head's on a ball joint so it can rotate left and right, move slightly up and down. You got the ball joints at the shoulders there, you got swivels at the bicep, a standard joint at the elbow, and a swivel at the wrist. You got the ab crunch articulation, as well as waist turn so you can rotate the upper body there. You've got hinge joints at the legs so they can move outwards, forwards, and backwards very nicely. Swivels at the thighs, standard joint at the knee, and a standard joint at the ankle so the foot can move up and down. So the paint job here is the big key, because it's meant to look like that vintage Batman figure from the Superpowers line, meaning the colors are much lighter than the other Batman figures that we've already received in the DCUC lineup. You'll notice that the blues are a very light color blue, and even the gray is a much lighter gray used on this figure than we've seen in the other gray and blue Batman in the line. I think the only thing on this figure that isn't quite like the vintage Superpowers line is the fact that the belt buckle on the utility belt is done in sort of a metallic gold. On the vintage figure, it was just a straight yellow plastic. So, since the paint job is the big difference here, it's comparison time. Here's a look at this Batman standing alongside the other blue and gray Batman released in the DCUC lineup. Here you can see the difference in colors between the two, as well as the difference in the mask with that black being used on the other DCUC version. And here he is standing alongside the vintage Superpowers Batman. That way you can see how similar the colors are between the two figures. Now, the other thing that these new Superpowers homage figures are including are collect and connect figure parts to build Cali back, this time with a brown costume so that he is much more similar to his vintage Superpowers action figure. Now, one thing to note about these collect and connect pieces is that they are not actually inside of the blister card, but rather housed in little plastic baggies inside of the white mailer. That way, for folks who want to display these figures mint on card, you don't have to actually display them on the wall with random Caliback parts kind of floating around inside the box. So there you go, my friends. There's a look at the brand new Superpowers homage Batman figure. Overall, it's a very nice figure, and the paint job is really awesome. It's the first time we've gotten this color on a Batman figure in the DC Universe Classics line, and I'd say it does a pretty good job of looking just like that vintage Superpowers action figure. Now, the card back on these guys are definitely the best part in my opinion, and I think that's going to be a huge appeal to all the collectors out there, especially those who are fans of that vintage line from Kenner. The only downfall I'm really going to point out with that packaging is the same thing I mentioned in my Superman review. I really feel like Mattel should have made these resealable packages, because the fact that you have to rip these open to get the figures out means that you can't display them in the package if you want to. I think a lot of fans are going to want to leave these guys mint on card. The other thing is that these are going to run $30 a piece, and the fact that they don't come with any accessories, that's a little steep for these guys. So these are really going to only appeal to those hardcore Superpowers fans, or those fans who want to have a complete DC Universe Classics collection. These figures are going to be released on MattyCollector.com in waves of 3 starting this fall, with the first wave being Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, all sold at $30 a piece. So happy hunting, my friends, and until next time.
homage.